it is early in the morning right now. It's like 7:30. I'm making another attempt at vlogging this time. I know I completely failed at it during that convention, but at least it was for a good reason. It's because of how incredibly busy we were the entire weekend, and that's the kind of issue you want to have during a convention. I am up this early because I'm currently on my way to Michigan for our first vacation since like 2014, so we're pretty excited. We're going to be going camping in Sheboygan and then going up to Mackinac Island, and the reason I wanted to vlog this, apart from just for our own purposes and having fun memories, is because of the fact that right now it is July as I'm filming this, which means it's Disability Awareness Month or Disability Pride Month, however you want to call it. And one of the reasons we don't often go on vacation, even though we could definitely use it, is because the world is so inaccessible. It's difficult sometimes for us to even have a normal date night because we constantly have to check ahead of time whether or not I can go into a certain location. So what we're going to be doing is sharing with all of you as much of our vacation as we can to let you know how accessible everything is from the point of view of someone who is in a mobility scooter. I'm not in a manual wheelchair, I am in a mobility scooter. So if you are also in one, hopefully this ends up benefiting you in some way if this is somewhere you're thinking of going. And obviously we're going in with kind of an open mind. Stuff like camping is going to be dicey, and we know that. Like, obviously with things like being in the dirt, being in the mud, things like that, there's not really that much a campground can do about it. But when it comes to things like how accessible buildings are, how accessible restaurants and stuff are, that's the kind of thing that we're looking at. Most of the attractions on the island, this is what we're looking for. The other thing is it's going to be flare weather, so hopefully I don't have too much trouble. Basically what we did, since we're driving for like 7 hours, is we already loaded me up in as many anti-inflammatories as possible, even though I felt okay this morning. It's just preemptive and a good idea to do if you're someone who does struggle from pain, to take it ahead of time, even if you don't think you'll need it. And even though it's too early for us to feel hungry yet, we have a whole bunch of water in the car, and we have a bunch of healthy snacks to get us through. And regardless of how we're feeling, at around lunchtime, we are going to stop someplace for lunch just to make sure we've got our strength up. But on we go now. Oh, checking back in on a slightly bumpy road.
Hi!
Everyone knows who that is, who's yelling off screen right now because she's driving, so she can't be on camera.
Yeah.
But,
Stay safe.
Why can't we say stay safe? What's wrong with us? Stay safe. Yeah, this is second check-in now. The last time I checked in, we were still in Pennsylvania. We were about to get on the road to Michigan. I didn't vlog the trip up to Michigan just because it wasn't terribly eventful. I mean, you're pretty much just taking a straight shot all the way through. But we made it there safely. Everything was good. We got to visit my grandpa. We just kind of chilled for a little bit. And right now we are on our way to Sheboygan. Technically, that's where we're going to be camping. So we're going to be seeing a little bit of that town. And then on either Tuesday or Wednesday, it all depends on how the weather is, we're going to be going up to Mackinac Island. It's going to be your first time on the island.
Yeah! See Sugarloaf, see Skull Cave, see Arch Rock, and the Florks thingy.
Yeah, speaking of things like Arch Rock, if any of you have ever felt the, want the desire to go to Mackinac Island and you want to see things like Arch Rock, I definitely would consider going like this year or next year, because from what my dad was saying, some of those old structures are starting to finally crumble into the lake. I mean, we've got like rising sea level, we've had inclement weather like nonstop this year. It makes sense why it's happening, but if you want to see specific sites, you might want to get on that soon. And outside of that, we're going to be hanging out in Mackinac City. Hey, we're almost there!
We're almost there!
Are you excited?
Yeah!
It feels like we've been in the car for a week.
I don't want to drive anymore after I get back Monday. You just found out we can go to Frankenmuth on Friday.
Yeah.
Bronner.
We're gonna be stopping in Frankenmuth on our way home from this trip, and the reason that's gonna be kind of fun, that's someplace I've been a whole bunch of times. It's kind of like a traditional family trip at Christmas time, but she's only been there once, and it was right after I had a major surgery. So I was so hopped up on pain medication, I barely remember it. People will show me photos from then. I'm like, I have no idea where I was at that point. We made it to our campsite finally. It's a kind of small little campsite itself, but it's plenty of room for us. And we decided to go exploring for a second before settling in for the night, and saw this tiny trail right next to it, and it led to a basketball hoop and a bunch of horseshoes stuff. So we kind of lucked out on where our location is. What do you think of the campground?
I love it. It's nice.
Good. Time to just relax for the rest of the night. So I just went on a little excursion to try to locate the bathroom that isn't an outhouse, which I did find. Unfortunately, the only disabled stall was extremely tiny. I just barely fit. There was no room for my feet to even be on the floor, and then getting out of the door of the bathroom was just as tricky. So definitely keep that in mind if you're planning on camping here in a chair. Right now we're just kind of trolling around Mackinac City because it's too late to go to the island, and it's beautiful, it's old, it's cute, everyone's really polite, but it is not very accessible. Like, yeah, I understood that a lot of stuff would have stairs because they're old buildings, but that's not the problem. It's this crap. Oh my god. I feel like I'm gonna explode.
Is this all that you dreamed it'd be? Ending up here, ending up with me. You could have gone anywhere, been anyone. You stole my heart.
Unfortunately, when we reached the fort in Mackinac City, we had some serious accessibility issues. The fort was built, I believe, at some point in the 1700s, and funny enough, as old as the structure itself is, the buildings were not in fact the problem here. The problem actually came down to the ground around it. As I'm sure you can see in the video right now, everything on the footpath was filled with tiny pebbles, and that was becoming an issue as far as them getting kicked up by my chair and creating potholes and things, especially since it had recently rained. And as a result of this, I was not able to get much filming done. In fact, I got no filming done inside the fort because I kept getting stuck in potholes and needing to be rescued by my family the entire time. It's a little hard to aim a camera while trying to get rescued from several potholes. So most of the time that my family was visiting the fort, I was just kind of hiding in a building. It's currently morning of the last full day of camping here. I was supposed to be documenting my time on the island, and unfortunately I didn't get to do that. I do have photographs so you can see what it looked like. I don't have any video though, and the reason for that is because I've never seen the island as busy as it was yesterday in my entire life. Even my dad hasn't. It was literally bumper to bumper. Even though I was being careful and paying attention to my surroundings, people were still bumping into me and I was still bumping into them. You could barely get into any stores, so yeah.
any videos on Mackinac Island because unfortunately it was the busiest I've ever seen it in my entire life. I've never seen it that bad. It was so bad, my parents were planning on renting bicycles and they couldn't because they wouldn't have been able to move because there were so many people. I was getting trapped inside buildings and trapped on the sidewalk and stuff. So I do have photos I'll be able to show everybody from when we were on the island, but there isn't going to be any video. That being said, I can say it was a lot more accessible on the island than it was in Mackinac City. Mackinac City, they tried, and as I mentioned before, I understand some buildings are old and there's not much people can do about it. That wasn't the problem. It's that on every single curb, there was such a steep bump that I was getting jarred around. So like it doesn't necessarily hurt your chair, depending on what kind of wheelchair you have, but it was hurting me because I have chronic pain. So keep that in mind if you're going to travel to Mackinac City and you're someone who struggles with chronic pain. Those curbs are going to jar you around and knock you around. So I basically, the second round, just decided I was going to make it easier on myself and just go in the road. People here are generally pretty nice, so we didn't have too much trouble with me driving in the road. They watched for me and they understood and like went around me and everything. But I didn't really have any issues in Mackinac Island until I reached the incline towards the Butterfly Conservatory. It wasn't the incline itself, although it is pretty steep, so if you have a manual wheelchair, again, you'll probably want to have someone help push you up so you don't have chronic pain flares. It was the fact that I have a very small power chair. I have an Easy Light Cruiser, and going up an incline that was a dirt road was causing it to, I think, assume the battery was depleting when it wasn't. So I had suddenly gone from being in the green to having literally nothing, and I had to stop and plug my chair in at an outlet on somebody's building for a few hours. So if you don't want that to happen, you might want to either opt for a manual for that part of it or just skip that part of the island entirely. It is just like a little carriage museum up there and the Butterfly Conservatory, but we did make it work and it was fine. And right now we decided that since Frankenmuth is on our way home, we're going there now, so you can see your Bronners and stuff, and we can get some cool ornaments and we can get some yummy German food and stuff. So we'll see you guys and check in again when we get to Frankenmuth.
I'm driving down an empty freeway, no waiting for the light to change. I'm seeing the sunrise behind me.
because
You had a better time with Frankenmuth.
yeah, I had a much better time with Frankenmuth. I actually had absolutely no problems in Frankenmuth, and that's always completely amazing. And honestly, although it was kind of annoying in Mackinac City, it wasn't as bad as some other places I've been. I just hope that in, time they decide to fix those curbs. But we're on the way back, and we will check in tomorrow when we're on the road. We're getting on the road pretty freaking early. We're waking up at 6, leaving at 7, and we want to get back to the kitty babies, but we've had so much fun, and we decided that we want to do this camping excursion every year because having a full week off for vacation, it's what we needed. We were kind of doing this thing where we would just scatter it with a few days here and there, and I don't think that's enough. Everyone needs to take a week-long vacation sometimes, so we're hopefully going to see my family in Pennsylvania in November, and then hopefully once a year in the summer we can have a camping trip, and it'll be really fun and nice to see everybody. All right, we're on the Ohio Turnpike.
Yeah, we're going home.
We are. There's a bumblebee in the background. We had so much fun though, didn't we? I kind of wish it wasn't ending today. I'm excited to go home and see the babies and kind of get back to normality, but I can also now see the appeal in the few cousins that I had who sold their house for an RV and just traveled pretty much till they died. Definitely see the appeal in that. What was your favorite part of the trip?
My favorite part was Mackinac City. The island was cool. I definitely got to see what I wanted to see there from all the videos I watched on YouTube. And got to see Sugarloaf. We got this. It's a big, humongous frack that maybe sometime we could do a little video on, like the mythology behind it, because it's kind of cool. And got to see our track. Got a lot of fudge. So much fudge.
We did get a lot of fudge. We're going to have to share with people because I don't know how we're going to get through all that.
Yeah. And went to this Mackinac City, which was really cool. They had like a lot of fun little shops here and there. And then went to Frankenmuth. Liked Frankenmuth a lot because it's just a bunch of really cool Germantown themed shops. And I really liked going there.
What's kind of nice, I think, about this trip versus ones we've taken before to Michigan is that there were two issues that kept rising. One was, well, the Rona, which we kind of figured, and the other was that we weren't sure if our car was going to make the trip or not. It was getting really expensive and really hard to fly every time, unless it was an absolute emergency. But we took it in for an inspection like the week before we set off for Michigan, and it hasn't really had any issues. Even like filling up the gas tank really hasn't been that bad. So it's kind of nice. Now we know we can make the trip. It's not that bad of a drive. Like my dad was right. He was like, the first time you make the drive, it feels like it goes on forever. But after you're kind of used to it, it's really not that bad at all. And beyond that, like, we're planning on being able to finally see my family more than once, like every 2 years. We're going to be trying to come back in maybe January for New Year's, and they're going to be trying to come to Pennsylvania for a visit in November. And if they do that, there's a lot of places in Pennsylvania we're going to be taking them, and I'll be able to more or less do the same thing I did for the Michigan trip, where I just kind of let you guys know how accessible things are. Sorry about how bumpy this is. But yeah, this is probably the end of this vlog because there's not much else to say. We're just going home now. But we hope you guys enjoyed it. We enjoyed our trip. I did the best I could to vlog as much of it as possible. And we will see you in the next video for a haul of all the stuff we got.